16th December. Members, officers, I would advise that the meeting is being recorded and will be placed on the Council's website where it is capable of repeated viewing, and the recording has now begun. Members, we'll first of all start with apologies and the sediment. We can go for the sediment first, please, Julie.
Thank you and good morning, members. Provost Barry Douglas.
Here.
Councillor Ellen Friel.
I'm here, Julie, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gordon Jenkins.
I'm here, thanks.
Councillor John McFadden. No. Councillor John McGee.
Yeah.
Councillor Helen Coffey.
Here.
Councillor Ian Grant.
Present.
Councillor Maureen Mackay. No. Councillor Tom Cook.
Yes, here, Julie.
I have an apology from Councillor Lillian Jones. Councillor Ian Linton.
Yeah.
Councillor Douglas Reid.
Here.
Councillor Fiona Campbell.
Here, thanks.
Councillor John Campbell. Councillor John Herd.
Here.
I have an apology from Councillor John Knapp. Councillor Claire Maitland.
Here.
Councillor Jim Todd.
Here.
Deputy Provost Sally Cogley.
Here.
Councillor George Mayer.
Here.
I have an apology from Councillor Elena Whittam. Councillor Claire Leach.
Here, Julie.
Thank you. Councillor Neil McGee.
Here.
Councillor Jim Roberts.
Here, Julie.
Councillor Alison Simmons.
Here.
I have an apology from Councillor Billy Crawford. Councillor Jim McMahon.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Jackie Todd.
Here, thanks, Julie.
Thank you. Councillor Walter Young.
Here, Julie.
Councillor John Bell.
Here.
Councillor Elaine Moody. Yeah, I can see you on screen. Yep. Councillor Drew Filson.
Here.
Thank you, Provost.
Julie, I'm present.
I'm here.
Thanks, Councillor Mackay.
Councillor McFadden, is that you? I can hear your dulcet tones.
It is, yes, I'm here as well.
Thank you. Thanks,
you.
Councillor McFadden.
Thank you, Julie. Members, before we go on to Provost remarks, I thought it was pertinent that the Chief Executive gives an update on the pandemic, and both from the Scottish Government point of view and from what we are doing here in East Ayrshire, given the progress of the latest strain. Eddie, if you can give us an update, please.
Thanks, Provost. Good morning, members. The Deputy First Minister wrote to councils, health boards, integration joint boards and others on Saturday, advising that the threat posed by Omicron variant and asking us to make an assessment locally of what actions we thought it was prudent that we had to take to protect our communities. As you know, there's also been announcements from the First Minister, and last night the Leader of the Council, myself, attended with COSLA a briefing from the Deputy First Minister. In response, the Deputy Chief Exec has been leading the CMT in terms of a group over this week to look at actions, that's prudent for us to take here within East Ayrshire. And there are a number of areas I would want to update you that's the outcomes of that work that's been going on. The first one is, of course, in relation to business continuity. Our purpose as a council is to provide services to our local, communities. So just now we are looking at, the priority in terms of services. At times we may have to stand down some services in order to focus on our priorities of service. We're already seeing some impact on services. There's severe pressure on our social care services at this time, and we are likely to see that continue into the new year. There are pressure on our education services, and Linda's put out a number of briefings to local members where we've had to take specific actions, and there's also pressure that goes right across that into our school meal service, and again we're having to take specific actions there. We anticipate that we will see pressures across our services doing that. In response we can look at, specific exemptions from, the self-isolation as a council, as long as we can do that following the government rules. We're putting arrangements in place where, the head of people and culture and the health and safety manager will support any head of service that wants to come forward with these type of requests. It should be noted that this is voluntary in terms of members of staff if they're going to come out of self-isolation to support, except for the slightly different arrangements in terms of our social care and our education staff. One of the other things that we're going to make sure we do is increase the reporting to yourself. So I'll step up the reporting to yourself to 3 times a week. And similarly, we're asking for services to report, into me to make us informed to 3 times a week too. Over the Christmas New Year break period, what we've agreed to do is we will do that just, by exception. So I'll tell you when there is a specific issue rather than asking services to chase about for that information at that time. We will also, over that period, put in, resilience arrangements. So you'll be given a rota who the senior officers on call are right over that period, so as that who to contact rather than be left, contacting, all of us in the management team. We're also speaking to our external partners, so some of our key partners, about their resilience arrangements and making sure support can be in there. A prime example, for instance, would be our care homes. In terms of our workforce, clearly, we need to, look to take care of our workforce. Many of our workforce require, to be in, they're front-facing in terms of community-facing staff, so they require to be in and work. What we're asking is our workforce, we're strongly encouraging our workforce to take lateral flow tests for staff who are not able to, come in. So take it before you come into work, come into any office or anything else. We're also very strongly, encouraging staff to say, you should only be in work if it's absolutely essential. So if your purpose is a social care worker or working, in roads or bins, clearly you need to be in at your work. But no one, should be in the offices other than it's an essential, reason to be in here. And again, we're looking at how we do that. That cuts across members, with your indulgence, yourselves as well as, like that. But we're leaving it to people's, trust and own good judgment. What is an essential, purpose. To be in the office. There can be many reasons for that, but given what we are learning about the transmission of this, variant, we're asking that people are only in the office to keep themselves and their colleagues safe if that's absolutely essential for us to do that. In terms of support to our communities, again, we've stood up a group to look at that, under the leadership of Kevin Wells, who's looking at that in terms of doing that. And we're looking carefully about how we can support distribution of food to larders and any other, steps that we need to take in terms of that. The Chief Financial Officer provided a briefing to, members in respect of some financial support that we are proposing and seeking, agreement from Council to support in terms of giving money to some of our most vulnerable families. There was already, a family pandemic payment going out to each child, who is on free school meals, and that was being topped up by a further £25 for each child in terms of food, for the time that they're not at school. What we've done under delegated powers and under consultation with the 3 group leaders is top that up from council grants that are available by a further £50 to make that every child who's entitled to free school meals in East Ayrshire will be getting, a payment of £235, and that should be dropping into the bank accounts of the families today and tomorrow. So it's really there in time for Christmas to support the families. So again, just with the agreement of council, we're taking that forward there. In terms of supporting our businesses, again, we've been advised that there will be further business grants. We're still waiting on, the detail of that, as indeed our businesses are waiting on the detail of that. We will again look to get that out as absolute quickly as possible, but clearly we need to understand the criteria, of that in order to be able to do that in terms of getting that out. So in terms of drawing things together, certainly what we need to do is communicate I think when we hear people all the time, you know, like if there any criticism, you know, widely around, you know, COVID-19, is about people are looking for communication. So we're working hard in terms of how we communicate with our workforce, with yourselves as elected members, with our communities and with our partners. So our communications team are working hard to bring together the types of, you know, communications to do that. The modelling, you know, that we have seen in terms of, you know, looking forward into January is looking that our services will be under severe pressure. We hear often about the pressure that will be on the NHS, and no doubt that is, you know, going to be under severe pressure, and we will provide support to colleagues there, you know, whenever we can. But we also need to look at our services and look at what, you know, the implications are for our services. We do anticipate severe pressure on social care services, that we may need to do things differently in terms of that. When we see what the, you know, the instances as it return back to school, we'll need to look at how, you know, we manage that. And then there's some of our other services, you know, our refuse workers tend to go around in cabs, you know, together. And again, I know the service is having to look at how we do that. So there are a whole range of our services that are out there that we're having to consider, both for the short term lead up to Christmas, and also with the modelling where we see the actual high incidence of this likely to be during January, actually how we do that there. The commitment is, as you know, from a management team, is that we will keep on top of this. We will continue to communicate with yourselves whenever required. We'll come to you for advice. We'll come to you for authority whenever we need to do that. So, members, that's a brief, you know, update, you know, of where we are at this time. But the commitment is that we will continue to keep you informed.
Thank you, Eddie. A very sobering time, members. Before I open up to questions and comments, I think the Council Leader and the Leader of the Opposition want to come in, so I'll take Dougie first and then John McGee.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Provost. Thanks, Eddie. You know, normally this time of year, it's a time, you know, just once we get the full council out the road, it's a time maybe to relax and, you know, a well-earned break. And I don't think we're going to get one this year. But I'd like to thank Eddie and the entire staff for all the hard work that they're putting in just now. As I said, Eddie mentioned there, we had a meeting with the Deputy First Minister last night through the Council Leaders. And, you know, I think even to government, sort of some unknowns here to both governments. And, you know, I think we need to watch just how this new variant impacts on ability for staff to turn up to their work, and you know, and take proper precautions in terms of shielding and proper testing. And just like to thank all our staff for all their cooperation here. Also, like as Eddie said, I think we want to give all our volunteers support, whether that's in distribution of food banks or, as was indicated to us last night, they're looking for volunteers in terms of the help with the vaccination program. There's plenty of vaccine, but there's not enough vaccinators, obviously, because they're affected by, you know, some of the staff absences, and they would prefer to get the staff that are able to administer vaccines, injections, and, you know, other members of staff who can help with the administration and the bureaucracy, and just to helping people to their seats, etc. So that, I mean, we would be supporting any kind of volunteers that way. And I just think that's great news this morning in terms of the families whose children are entitled to school meals for that £235. And appreciate everybody's, you know, the two group leaders support in this, and something that our families will much be needed over this holiday period. In terms of when there's so much uncertainty, and also in terms of business grants to support our businesses through this difficult period. But as Eddie said there at the end, I think communication is essential, and we'll try and keep communication links very close to all 32 members, so that you can translate that into and spread that out to the communities out there. We know in terms of delivery in an emergency, our communities and all 32 members really stepped up to the plate. And although it's holiday time this time, you know, I hope East Ayrshire members, like you always do, step up to the plate and give our communities the support you can. And thanks very much, Provost. Thanks very much, Eddie.
Thank you, Dougie. I'm sure all members would associate themselves with those comments. Councillor John McGee.
Hi, thanks, Provost, and thanks for that update, Eddie. It's indeed another worrying time, probably especially for those in the hospitality industry once again. But I think just to say that the grant money that we're managing to give out again, I think we've got to applaud our own staff for all the time that we've managed to make sure that we get all the names and addresses, and we've got a really good system to get that money out. I mean, I think that's a tremendous piece of work. I just want to ask a question regarding our schools. Given the issues at our schools, have we gave any consideration to closing them from Monday the 20th? And would we be allowed as a single authority to close our schools early if that was the wish of council, or indeed the parents and teachers? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. I'll ask Eddie who wants to respond to that.
Thanks, Provost. Councillor McGee, you know, we don't have the authority just to close all our schools. We're looking at things on an individual, you know, basis. You know, so when there are any issues, you know, regarding whether that's a part of a school, etc., you know, the head teacher then links with, you know, with Linda, and then we'll come to ourselves and we'll take, you know, proportionate action each time in terms of that. And there have been times that, you know, like where we're having to, you know, stop some of the classes. So some, you know, in one school, some classes will stop today and some will stop tomorrow, just because of the level of, you know, like COVID within the areas. But no, you know, we can't just shut all the schools, you know, across East Ayrshire.
Thank you, Eddie. Councillor Cook, then Councillor McMahon, and then Deputy Provost Sally Cogley, and then Councillor Leach, in that order. Thanks. Councillor Cook.
Thanks, Provost, and thanks, Eddie, for that update. It feels a bit like Groundhog Day. We were sitting here this time last year with a very uncertain Christmas and New Year in front of us, although with a bit of hope that we had the vaccine round the corner and was about to start to be rolled out. However, despite the best efforts of everybody, you know, we're back to where we were again at this time last year. It's not a good position for us to be in, but I'm pretty confident that, as we did in the past, all our staff, employees and our volunteers will all step back up to the plate again and work, you know, to make sure that everybody's kept as safe as possible. You know, people are getting all the support they need, and you know, we just have to behave, obey the rules, and hopefully get ourselves out of this by the spring of the year. But I do recognise that you know, it's going to be a troubling time for many people, and we just hope that everything works out well for everybody. And you know, I welcome the fact that we're going to be kept informed through communication channels as to what is actually happening. And you know, it's going to be a hard time for some of our staff over Christmas, but you know, please wish them all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor McMahon.
Thanks, Provost. Just concur with all the sentiments that's been before us this morning, and with thanks to all our staff for elected members volunteering. Personally, I think if we can be contacted by the officers to let us know where we need, and it doesn't need to be in my own ward. If I'm required anywhere else, I can move round about the authority if need be. Just one particular point for me, it's round about were care homes, and I see we have an outbreak in 3 of them. Just if I can kept up to date with that, Eddie, Mayor, other than the 3-day, but just keep me informed as that goes along. We know the impact that had on our services last year in the care homes, so I'm just hoping, fingers crossed, that we don't need to go through the same thing this year with our care homes and they get their visitors as they need them. But I'd appreciate an update on that.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. Eddie.
Thanks, Provost. Thanks, Councillor McMahon. Yep, you know, like, so Eric chairs the care home oversight group and keeps really close to that. You know, and if there are any significant, you know, like reports out that, I'll make sure that that's forwarded on.
Thank you, Eddie. Deputy Provost.
Thank you very much for the update. I've had a couple of people commenting or contacting me and asking who they should go to volunteer to assist with the vaccination programme. And Dougie, that you've referred to, perhaps it would be useful if following the meeting, a link was provided so that we could publicise it and people then know where to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. Councillor Leach.
Thanks, Provost. Eddie, absolutely fantastic about the £235 for families in the state free school meals. I mean, in times like this, where we're seeing cuts to universal credit, cut away, soaring energy prices, kind of detrimental to a lot of families, particularly some of the families I'm working with as a councillor, and I know how welcome this will be. And I suppose just to kind of put a thought forward also for our school meals, totally appreciate the staff are off due to illness. However, we do also appreciate that the only hot meals some kids get are their school meals, and I know we're all doing our best, but just a wee tribute to the folk as well.
Absolutely, well said, Councillor Leach. Thank you for that. Councillor Jim Todd, and then Councillor Ian Grant, and then I'm going to move on, members, unless there's something very pressing somebody wants to come back with. But Councillor Jim Todd.
Thanks, Provost. Thanks, Eddie. A great report, and please pass on all our thanks again, as everybody said. Just one I want to ask about. I mean, like others, I volunteer round about the festive period. Do that every year. A wee bit of concern this year because of the booster. I haven't had my booster yet. I'm not going to do anything until I get the booster. I'm booked in, so I will get it. But I just wondered that maybe a wee bit of organising between especially councillors, because we'll be out there in the face of the public. If we're going to do that, I think we need to be managed properly. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? Councillors need to be managed. But I think we need to be careful what we do that. Those folk that maybe in the vulnerable side shouldn't be out volunteering, in my opinion. And those that haven't had their booster yet should maybe think about twice about getting out into the communities. It's just a wee, it's not a warning, but just tell everybody to be careful. I will help wherever I'm needed once I get the booster. But I think we need to be careful where we go. Thank you.
No, absolutely well made points, Councillor Todd. Thank you for that, and I'm glad when you get your booster, I'm sure, like all members. But I think if we can, through Eddie's office and Katie as well, maybe those who are available and can be available, we make ourselves available. But please do not be putting yourselves at risk. It is vitally important for everybody else. There's no point in us all falling sick and maybe spreading that further in the community. People, please keep yourselves safe. If you've not had the booster, I think you listen to what Councillor Todd has just said. Councillor Grant.
Thanks, Provost. The one thing that we do know about Omicron is that it's moving fast. It's moving very fast throughout our communities. And I'm very heartened to see how quickly we as a council are responding and how quickly we're coming together and putting plans in place to do our absolute best to mitigate the effects of this illness. Now, what I can say is that I know my colleagues very well, irrespective of which party we're from or any other consideration. All 32 of us are very happy to work individually and to work together for the benefit of our community. Not every part of this country is like that, but we're people that put the county and the people in this county first and their own employees. So it's just to reassure you that every one of us will stand ready to help in any way that we can. Holidays or not, you can call on us and we'll be ready to help in any way possible. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grant. A sobering time, I think, members, you would all agree. But thank you to the Chief Executive for his update. Members, we'll move on to the business proper, if you're OK with that. If you indulge me for a few minutes, I'll give you some of my remarks. Members, since the last council, on the 28th of October, I went along to the reopening of the Take a Bow Lunch Club, which is at the Take a Bow Opportunity Centre, New Farm Loch. The club runs every Thursday, where they serve a lovely two-course meal, lunch, for £4. It was great to see so many people getting the chance to socialise at the lunch club again. And of course, it just shows you 6 weeks later how things have changed, members. On the 2nd of November, on the 21st, I went in to visit the 21st Ayrshire Beaver Colony, and they were very keen to discuss what it was like to be a councillor or what it was like to be the provost as part of their Parliament Week activities. I had a really good time and some very interesting and in-depth questions from kids as young as 5 up to sort of 9 and 10-year-old. And there's definitely some future politicians amongst that very, very well-informed group. Along with Councillor Jenkins, I attended the No One Dies Alone event on the 4th of November. It was a privilege to attend the event and to remember those friends and loved ones that we've lost. I managed to pay tribute to my own father at the event and said a few words too. Death remains a huge taboo, I think it's fair to say, for everybody, but it is something we will all face, I'm sorry to say. The important part played by the volunteers from No One Dies Alone Ayrshire is absolutely vital to ensure that a friendly face can be with a person at the end of their life. And I cannot praise them highly enough for what they do. So thank you all, and thank you to Councillor Jenkins for his involvement there and for having me along at the event. On the 14th of November, we stood silent in remembrance, and it was an honour to lay wreaths on behalf of East Ayrshire Council at the War Memorials in Kilmarnock, Crookedholme and Cumnock. Whilst the remembrance services are not back to scale pre-pandemic, it is vital that the traditions of remembrance continue, so we cannot and must not ever forget the sacrifice made by so many in so many different conflicts. On the 19th of November, I attended Loudon Musical Society's Together Again show, along with Councillor Mackay, Willie Coffey, MSP, and our MP, Alan Brown. I was delighted to see a fantastic array of local talent. It really was amazing. And again, it just shows you a few weeks later, less than a month, how things have changed. The hall was packed, everybody adhering to the rules and wearing masks, but seeing the amazing talent we have locally on stage again was fantastic. The 24th of November, I managed to do a job I've never done before, and that was flip burgers for Meet in the Middle in Titchfield Street. John Lang and his team are doing a great job, and they've relaunched their premises. A local business with local suppliers, and the food was fantastic too. So definitely it was an experience. Flipping the burgers, I didn't manage to drop anything too much. Well, some of the tools, but not any of the burgers. I'll be glad to know. Another thing I think is really important to mention today is Councillor Claire Leach's amazing award win on the 25th of November. The Councillor Awards took place, and Councillor Claire Leach won the award for Champion of Education at the LGIU Scotland and the CCLA Awards. They took place in Glasgow City Chambers on the 25th of November. They are the only awards that take place to celebrate the vital contributions of local councillors across Scotland. We are probably, we would expect us to champion our own work, but it's always good when others recognise that too. Claire was recognised for her determination and her representation of youth voice in all decision making in East Ayrshire. Councillor Leach was also celebrated for her work in giving children and young people the power to shape council decisions. And I'm sure you'll all join me in congratulating Claire on this very much deserved achievement. Very well done. We're very proud of you, Claire.
Thanks.
On the 4th of December, I managed to attend the Acquired Taste Christmas concert, so I was absolutely full of Christmas spirit then. It was a really nice evening at the K Park Church here in Kilmarnock. The choir put on a fantastic show, the first time in 2 years that they have performed live. So thanks to Liam Bailey and Jess Barry and their choir for inviting me along. Members, I think it's important to also recognise some of the other good work that has gone on throughout the council. So congratulations to our community-led regeneration team, who along with Kilmarnock Business Association were recognised with a special Judges Award at the recent Scotland Loves Local Awards. The award recognised the work done to develop the East Ayrshire gift card and highlighted it as a pathfinder that helped to progress the development of gift cards nationally. It's been, I think we'd all agree, an extremely challenging period over the last 18 months, particularly for our local businesses. And the approach taken by this council has been highlighted as good practice. The work is a clear expression of community wealth building, and I know so many members here are absolutely committed to developing community wealth building. So here it is in action, and we're keeping that spend local, and it was great to see that we were recognised nationally. So well done to everybody involved. The Apse Awards this year, I have to say we have a fantastic result there in relation to our facilities and property management and Ayrshire Roads Alliance teams who were nominated for national awards. So in the best and most improved performer award section of the awards. The awards recognise that in the face, I think it's fair to say, of an extraordinary pressures, unbelievable pressures, all finalists have demonstrated an astounding level of resilience and ingenuity. The winners were announced last week, with facilities and property management taking the award for the most improved section for building cleaning. And I think everybody will echo that thanks and those good wishes to all the staff involved. Members, as this is the last full council of the year, it would be remiss of me not to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. And to the staff of East Ayrshire Council, all the volunteers out there and all of your families too, please have a peaceful new year, a safe Christmas. Look out for those in need and look in on your neighbours because they may well need your help more than ever. And as we've said at the beginning of the council meeting, I think it's absolutely vital. Those who can, if we can, give support, please do. Those who can't, due to perhaps underlying health issues or not having had the booster, stay at home, but please be safe, stay in touch. And I think as the East Ayrshire family are all here for everybody, and it's important that we continue in that vein as we've done so throughout the last 2 years. Members, we'll move on to the business proper and we'll start with declarations of interest. David, I wouldn't imagine there are any.
I wouldn't expect any from the business on the agenda, Provost, no.
Thank you very much. Members, item 2, which is the previous minutes of the council meeting of 28th October. I will move them as a correct record, but if I can get a seconder for that from the Deputy Provost, and then David, if you could update us on one of the items, please. Councillor Cogley.
Yes, I second that. Thank you.
Thank you. David, can you give us an update in Gatehead Community Centre?
Thanks, Provost. Very briefly, the minuted decision was based on the recommendation from the review panel, which was based on the recommendation from officers at that time, and specifically Council accepted the recommendation and authorised officers to enter into a lease for 5 years, which was the recommendation. However, in further negotiation with the group at Gatehead, they made an ask for a longer period of lease. Standard reason in terms of being able to access external funding. The longer the tenure, the greater the accessibility of external funds. So that ask came back as could it be a 15-year lease, and in the circumstances I took the view that the council decision being based on officer recommendation was not intended to be prescriptive, rather supportive, and council having approved a 5-year lease, I'm hoping we'll have no difficulty now being advised that we actually entered into a 15-year lease in order to accommodate the wishes of the group. It didn't feel appropriate or proportionate to reconvene council simply to revisit that decision. So it's a slight variation on the decision for good reason, and I think it benefits all parties. So hopefully members are okay with action taken under the decision previously approved.
Thank you, David. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, there being none, we will move on. Thank you. To item 3, which is the Cabinet and Committee minutes. I'm going to ask that they be moved en bloc, please, members. Councillor Reid.
Thanks. I'd like to move them on block, Provost. Thanks, Barry.
Thank you. Have I got a seconder? Councillor McMahon.
I'll second that, Provost.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, members, on the Cabinet and Committee minutes? Councillor Cook.
Thanks, Provost. It's on page 56, the Cabinet meeting of 4th of November. I'm just wondering, in terms of BSL, if there's any progress in having a BSL signers to any of our meetings that are being recorded and therefore transmitted out to the public.
Very good question, Councillor Cook. Ian, okay, Ian Tuff is on the call. Ian, could you come in on that, please?
Yeah, happy to do so, Provost. So we have taken that away. It's a matter we're considering along with the colleagues in the comms team as well to look at options for how we could produce even edited or abbreviated versions of meetings with signage added to that as well, Councillor Cook. So it is a matter we're actively pursuing. Be happy to bring something back to Council or to Cabinet in the new year on that. Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Cook, are you satisfied with that answer? I think that's a Good progress been made there. Any
Yeah,
other?
absolutely fine with that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members? Okay, members can move on to the business proper then, and that is item 4, so pages 81 onwards in your papers, which is a 6-monthly update on cabinet activity by the Leader of the Council. Dougie, over to you.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Provost. I'll try and be brief. Just highlight some of the main bits of progress. Obviously, with the young persons guarantee from the government, we've given young people particular support around employability, particularly 100 most disengaged young people. And as I think we've mentioned previously, if you haven't had a chance to go down to the hub at Titchfield Street, go down there, I'm sure you'll be really pleasantly surprised to see some of the activity from some of our most vulnerable and disengaged young people, and some of the work they're doing in the path to employability. And it's really heartwarming to see the success of that. At previous cabinet, we had £1.3 million worth of place-based investment, much needed investment in local communities, most of it through the place-making strategies, all circulating money and trying to do that in terms of procurement through the community wealth building activity that we've been doing. And that's been really encouraging as well. We made some considerable progress in terms of the Ayrshire growth deal. I spoke at a UK conference earlier in the week, and we really are seen as one of the leading authorities in terms of green energy and actually delivering the growth deal. I think in terms of Clyde Valley, we started 7 years behind them in terms of implementation, and we've really caught up with that. We're certainly the best, and indisputably the best non-city deal that's out there, and that continues to support the economy and their local business. And also in terms of early learning, Janie and her team have to be congratulated as we've rolled out 1140, and 92% of eligible children have taken up their early learning place. That's well above the kind of national average, so there's been real progress there. Same with in terms of the resettlement update and Afghan relocation assistance scheme, we continue to make progress there, and there are now families moving into our community there. Safer School Streets was making considerable progress there. We're now, as the other elected members, we're now getting pressure from quite a number of our schools to want to emulate some of the activity in terms of road safety that's been done in Galston and in Catherine there. The Foregate multi-storey car park demolitions, we know maybe because of some of the pressure in other car parks that we're having a busy time of year. And I think what's clear now from the kind of how busy the town is just now is we need to do our best to accelerate the programme of building the new, whether it's temporary or permanent, alternative car parking in the town in Kilmarnock. And we must try and do that kind of as quickly as we can. And I met with the other 2 leaders yesterday just to discuss some of the arrangements for the Christmas park. We know there's some traders for it, and I think significantly more are for it, but we've decided just to press on with the current scheme and maybe review parking arrangements in the new year. Continue to make progress in terms of the school estate capacity, and just hopefully we'll have an update and progress fairly soon for local members and how we're getting on with the 2 classroom modular unit at the Grange campus. But hopefully we're making progress there. We then had a suite of papers in terms of some of the great work we're doing in housing, and some of the in service delivery. We're making great impact in reducing the number of void properties, the number of empty properties. We had 154 properties that were lying empty for 6 months or longer 5 years ago, and that's been reduced by almost a quarter to just 40 this year. And we continue to make progress in short-term voids or short-term empty properties as well. In terms of investment, we continue to make major investments in particularly the new energy efficiency systems, whether that's heating, cladding, or other means, and also which is very popular with our tenants, is the new kitchens and bathrooms and electrical upgrades. And I know there's another motion from John later on, and hopefully we can, in terms of our electrical upgrades, we can reflect upon that if that motion is successful. But I think it does make common sense. But I know John will have a lot to say about that later on. In terms of the ship, making great progress there. In terms of building new build, we're going to be delivering our first ever carbon neutral houses up in Bonneton. But we're working with other social landlords to be building right across the 9 wards in East Ayrshire over the next year or two. And hopefully deliver more in terms of assisted living homes as well, and just building houses according to need. I mean, I think one of the things I'd taken issue, in terms of the government subsidy, I've made that point at Causland and elsewhere, that it's unfair that local authorities get less subsidy than other registered social landlords. And I think that's something we need to press home. I know the government's keen in, the number of houses that we're building, and that's, of course, we want to build more socially rented housing, but I think quality is just important. And when you look at, what we're doing for medical need and people to live independent lives within their community, I think, and then what we're also doing in terms of regeneration, I think the local authority gets more bangs out of their buck in terms of what we're delivering in terms of housing. And elsewhere, we had we were able to sign up to the UK 100 net zero pledge in the middle of COP26. And I'd like to thank Claire Leach for all her help there as spokesperson. We also attracted interest internationally, and we're able to show the Israeli government around some of what we're doing in terms of green energy. And I'd like to thank Councillor Grant for his assistance in achieving that. And we continue to do a number of measures and lead the way in terms of dealing with climate change. And in particular, I'd like to thank our young people for their contribution to the Young Persons Cabinet. And finally, in terms of wellbeing, Tom mentioned the British Sign Language update. We're really quite keen in doing that, looking at how we communicate with all people, particularly as we go live and on stream here just now. It's important that we connect with everybody and do the best that we can to get that message out to all groups in our community. And of course, we've had the response to the National Care Service consultation, and we continue to have discussions with ministers, and we have had a meeting lined up with the minister later on in the week where we can express the view of East Ayrshire directly to the minister later on in the week. And last but not least, and Barry, it was remiss of you not to mention football. And I'm trying to, I'll pin this on the East Ayrshire Leisure Facility strategy and with leisure. East Ayrshire has managed to get 3 football clubs into the last 32, the Scottish Cup, with Darvel winning earlier in the week. So that's, we've the only other authority that's equal to that is Glasgow. Of the other 32 authorities, Glasgow's got 3 teams into the last 32. And I'm quite sure that Darvel, Auchinleck, Talbot and Kelly will do just as good a job to progress the last 16 as Celtic, Rangers and Partick Thistle. And that positive note, Barry, that's if there's any questions on that. And obviously, just maybe take this opportunity to members just to wish you all and your families a happy Christmas, a prosperous New Year. Thanks, Barry.
Thank you very much, Dougie. No, you're absolutely right. We are punching above our weight in so many ways, and particularly in football as well. So great to see. just a point I wanted to raise, not particularly, more just a point for officers. I got approached by a 9-year-old constituent yesterday who has been learning all about energy efficiency at school, he tells me, but also told me that he was dismayed to see that the lights were on in the Foregate car park and it's now empty. So why are they on? So I said I would get my question and I would raise it today. So there you go. He gave me an in, Dougie. Members, if you can indulge me, if officers can maybe let me know. But I've got, first of all, I think Councillor John McGee, and then the tribute act of Neil McGee, Councillor Tom Cook, and then Jim Roberts, and then Sally Cogley and Jim Todd, did you say? No. Oh, sorry, just get the 4. So we'll start with John McGee. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Provost. And I've got to say, I absolutely agree with the Leader of the Council regarding the performance of council employees at all levels. I think it's been tremendous through this continuing pandemic, and an extra appreciation must go to those who have been at the front end and continue to do so. The Ayrshire Growth Deal and community wealth building will indeed be key to us continuing to support fair work and tackling inequality. And as the Leader of the Council pointed out, there are a number of excellent strands of work being implemented as pointed out. However, there are a number of worrying issues on the horizon, some more immediate than others. The National Care Service plans could have a disastrous outcome for our successful partnership approach in East Ayrshire. The most immediate threat, I think, is the appalling Scottish Government budget announced on the 9th of December, which was so bad for local government that leaders of all councils supported the Cosla motion condemning the real terms cut to the core budget of local authorities, despite an increase in the block grant to Scotland. This could provide devastating to the essential services provided by local government, and we have our local communities at our heart. These continuing real term cuts in the midst of an ongoing pandemic, as pointed out by the Chief Executive earlier today, will prevent local authorities from carrying out essential services that people require. At this moment in time, 100 million cut to the local government core settlement before any other pressures such as national insurance costs, fair inflation are taken into account is simply unsustainable. As most of us have previously agreed in this chamber, properly funded local government is good government, and I think we're headed for challenging times. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Neil McGee.
Thanks, Provost. Just briefly to comment on Dougie mentioning the supported living facility in Auchinleck. Just to say it's really exciting. It's a terrific addition to the community, and it also rid us of a social hazard way, 4 in a block individual flats. So they went, and the new facilities are going to be in place very soon. So thanks very much for that.
Thank you very much, Councillor McGee. Councillor Cook.
Thanks, Provost, and just like to thank the Leader for his report today, and like everyone else, recognise and praise the work that all our staff have done over the last year through this crisis that we've been facing. Everybody's really pulled themselves together. And I don't want to really single people out, but I think maybe worth mentioning the work that Joe McLaughlin and his team have done, getting the money out to the people who need it as quickly as possible, grants and loans. So well done to him, and also to Katie and the whole team in there for pulling all our communities together and keeping everybody safe and making sure people are getting fed and supported with everything that they need. So just well done to all of these people. The leader touched on the school capacity, and he and I know have been well involved in this for quite a while with the Parent Council at Iron Hill, and we now welcome the fact that the modular classrooms are on their way. However, I think there is a typo in the page 85, section 35, that refers to these being available from January 21. I wish they had been, but I think it's January 22 that we're actually looking at now to have them available. And the other point I just wanted to touch on, and the leader has mentioned the rollout of the 1140 hours and the great work that we've done as a council to get our people engaged in that and get the young people into early years learning. However, and Councillor McGee mentioned the budget last week, and as a result of that budget, it appears that this council is going to get £360,000 cut for early years learning going forward. Now, we as a council previously agreed that we would not use any of our own funds to support 1140 hours, since we were told it would be fully funded by John Swinney at the time. So I'm just wondering how we're going to tackle that going forward. It is a huge amount of money to lose from the budget, and I think it's going to cause concern to parents knowing that the money's not there to deliver what we actually want. So thanks very much, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cook. Councillor Roberts.
Thanks very much, Provost. There's a lot of good stuff in this report. I'll just pick a couple out, if that's okay with you. And it's in relation to school streets. Obviously, it's an initiative. It's producing dividends. Catherine, we can see the response we've had in relation to Catherine. We all know the problems we're having with our schools. It's not just a problem that's unique to one school. It's probably right across the spectrum, and not just East Ayrshire, but far beyond, where we see the congestion at streets and we get dangerous situations being developed every day. So that's a step in the right direction. The other one I would like to mention is the property management plan. I think it's so important. We all agree we look after the council portfolio. So this initiative is a really good one, because very often when properties are allowed to start deteriorating, it's a slippery slope, and the values decrease rapidly. So it is important because it's a key asset to the council. If you'll indulge me, Provost, you mentioned the Apse Awards earlier on. I'd just like to add one comment in relation to the good work that's been done by our services and being recognised at Apse in terms of the excellence that they're actually delivering. So thanks very much, Provost.
Thank you very much. I'm sure everybody involved will be appreciative of your comments, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Jim Todd.
Thanks, Provost. Leader, you refer to situation with Afghan refugees and unaccompanied children, and there's a part in there that you're asking the governments for funding to accommodate the pressures that got put on East Ayrshire Council. I've just wondered, is there any reply from Westminster, because it was Westminster that caused this debacle. Everybody seems to forget these things, that the decisions to empire-making decisions from Westminster to invade foreign countries with no concept of an end game, no concept of the deaths, thousands of UK troops dead for nothing, families decimated all over the world because of decisions made at Westminster. And we have to pick up the pieces. We were broken servicemen and women coming back, their minds destroyed, and families getting sent all around the world from a broken country where we walked away from. Angry, oh aye. So I just wondered if there's any update to the funds that we've asked for. Thank you.
I think very powerful comments there, Councillor Todd. Councillor Reid, I don't know if you want to come back at this stage, or we maybe get a reply from officers in that regard.
I mean, I know certainly we're in discussions, Jim, with our partners in COSLA, and there has been some discussion about the amount of subsidy that we're getting, because I think we've often in the past underestimated how much money that local authorities spend, and it's not just simply, these people that land in their shoes are heavily traumatised, and we know for the Syrian refugees that we've had, we had to give them additional support through education and social care as well. So it's important that that's recognised and that we get funded accordingly. There's no shortage of willingness in most local authorities, including our own, to support these people, and it's up to the government to utilise it and make sure that we do get enough money that we can not just provide a roof over the head, but giving them all the support socially that we can to fully integrate and make them productive members of our communities, as our previous experience with the Syrian refugees was absolutely fantastic. But in terms of the latest negotiation, I think maybe Katie could help out there.
Thank you, Dougie. Katie, can you give us an update, please?
Yeah, just through you, Chair. Yeah, we're working alongside government, as the Councillor Reid has said, and also I can confirm that we have settled 2 Afghan families in recent weeks, and they're settling very well in East Ayrshire, and we have the funding and support available to take them forward. And a lot that we've learned in working alongside our friends from Syria and how well they've settled, that that's really helped us in terms of the infrastructure to do that. So we have 2 families who have moved into East Ayrshire who are settling well.
That's really positive news, Katie. Councillor Todd, I'm sure you'll take some heart from that as well, to know that we're doing all we can, and I'm sure that through officers and through political leadership we will put and continue to apply pressure to those in power to make sure that they are properly funding what is essentially as a result of their actions. So I hear you. Any other comments or questions from members? Members, can we...
Can I come back just on a couple of issues that's been raised?
Absolutely, you can indeed.
Just a couple of items in terms of the budget, and in some aspects we were disappointed in terms of the budget, but the negotiations continue, and I was one of the signatories to that motion, and we're looking to have another meeting with the Cabinet Secretary through the causal leaders to see if we're able to align or get any more money that's available. There was a bit of confusion in terms of some of the COVID money that was support. What was expressed as new money from the UK government was actually just money that was moved forward a month earlier. And we knew, there is all that uncertainty, certainly with the new strain of the COVID virus, that we're going to need additional support there as well, in terms of just even in the short term. But we continue to press home the need for more money. One of the other things that the government's chosen to deal with, as we did, to deal with delayed discharges, and we've got we have got the best record in terms of effectively 0 delayed discharges, which is the envy of all the other 31 authorities. But the government want to put a resource around that, and as expressed at the meeting, as expressed, I hope that I hope that because we've put that investment in terms of our care packages and putting a care team into the hospital, etc., to minimise delayed discharges, that other local authorities aren't subsidised to our expense, and that effectively, not so much maybe bad behaviour, but people that have been less active in pursuing that aren't rewarded for failing to do so, and that it's only fair that we get a fair share of the money as well, and that's looked at with all transparency. So we've been given an assurance, but we continue to press home various other things in terms of the national insurance issue, and possibility of relaxation of teacher numbers, and other, particularly with the situation that we've got with the COVID, there's a number of possible ways. So that's all in the mix, and we're still in the negotiation to see if there's anything we can do to lessen the stress in our budget locally here. And there's another meeting next week of causal leaders to go through the budget and other matters. So I'll update members as soon as I have any information, but certainly you mentioned Joe McLaughlin has been great help in terms of within, not just in terms of East Ayrshire, but nationally in terms of the negotiations, and making sure we get a fair settlement, and we continue to press that home. And lastly, but not least, this is Eddie's last year, and we mentioned Joe, and I think in terms of our difficulties we've had in the last year and the challenges we've had, maybe no difficulties, challenges, maybe a better word, and thank Eddie for his baptism of fire. And as other members, we've now we filled the 2 last vacancies last week, with Blair Muller and Ian Tuff getting positions to the senior directorate. And that's, Eddie, you've now got a full team, and we wish you all the best, that you can continue to deliver the good work that you've delivered over your initial months as taking over as Chief Executive. Thanks very much, Provost.
Thank you. I'm sure members would echo those comments. It's not been an easy time to step up to the job of Chief Executive, but particularly I think we'd all want to wish Blair and Ian the very best in their new roles, or continuing roles in some cases. Members, if there's no further questions to the Leader of the Council on his 6-monthly report, can we move on, because this item is for noting. If we can move on then to item number 5, which is changes from the SNP group, and that is that Councillor Claire Leach replace Councillor Maitland as Chair of the Equalities Forum, and that Councillor Jim Todd replace Councillor John Campbell on the Buchanan bequest. Is that agreed, members? Agreed? Okay, see lots of thumbs up. Good, okay. Move on to item number 6, which is a Treasury Management Mid-Year Update Report for the year 2021-22. This coming direct to Council rather than to Governance and Scrutiny on this occasion. And Joe McLaughlin, who has been applauded in the last item, I'm sure will give us a very thorough report now. Joe, over to you.
Thank you, Provost, and good morning, members. As Provost said, it's the mid-year report that you have this morning. It captures the Treasury transactions for the first 6 months of this financial year. It attempts to give fuller details on those important prudential indicators that you set as part of this strategy in March. But the mid-year report also provides an opportunity to comment on some of the wider issues that are affecting global markets. And you don't need me, members, to tell you that it's fairly volatile in terms of the markets overall. I suppose to start, members, draw your attention to paragraph 7, to those interest rates forecasts. It's a table that shows the interest rates from now through to March 2024. It shows the bank base rates and the corresponding borrowing rates at the Public Works Loan Board. What the table essentially is showing is that stepped movement from the current rate of 0.1% through to the anticipated Bank of England rate of 0.75% in March 2024. And it shows that in terms of those steps, that there is those steps are factored into those PWLB borrowing rates too. However, members, it is volatile, and that was produced, a few weeks ago. We now have a different strain of the coronavirus, and in paragraph 10 and onwards, we begin to give you a flavour of just some of the things that are happening in the wider environment, both here and in other countries too. And in terms of the forecasts for the interest rates, they are not expected to rise quickly. We know that in terms of that volatility, it's been made worse in recent weeks by the rising gas and electricity prices. We know that there is cash being stockpiled by people through savings. And we also know that yesterday, the rate of inflation, the consumer price index, rose above 5% for the first time in probably 10 years. So that needs to be factored into those initial views on interest rate rises that was made by the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of England, because these are significant factors and shocks that have occurred. However, in moving forward, we will at all times monitor that situation, but suffice to say, it is fast moving and volatile. Moving back to our report, to our Treasury Report, in paragraph 19 notes the capital investment and that capital financing requirement. And it shows, and it notes at paragraph 20 that we have movement in our capital programme. It's an ambitious capital programme, and because of that, we will see reprofiling. That profiling took place at period 7 of the Stage Reforms Report. It's not captured in this report because this report takes us through to September. We'll see that in the end of year report. And moving on to the capital financing requirement, which is essentially the Council's indebtedness. It's shown in paragraph 24, and it shows that in terms of your CFR and those important indicators that you set, that we are within those limits. We note that during the first 6 months of the year, we have not taken any borrowing, but members, you do know that as a council, we are under borrowed and we need to borrow. And those factors that I mentioned a few moments ago around interest rate rises and those more recent changes around inflation and other fiscal shocks will maybe cause some delay to those stepped increases that I mentioned at the start of this presentation. And so that's listed at paragraph 28, and we can see those indicators moving forward in the report. In terms of the authorised limit and operational boundary, those key indicators that I mentioned in previous reports, these are essentially the red lines in the Treasury strategy upon which no further spending can be undertaken. In terms of this council, I'm pleased to confirm that in terms of those limits you set, they have not been breached, and that all the indicators you set have been complied with, and that's noted at paragraph 32. Moving on to our investments, and you know there's a list at paragraph 37. You can see that the investments that we hold. It's important to note just at paragraph 37 that we've seen in the last few weeks that the Debt Management Office, which is an arm of the Treasury, same as the Public Works Loan Board, the Debt Management Office is where we would place our money if we had excess money, and they are now offering interest rates at 0 or negative interest rates for periods of less than 3 months duration. So you can see that in terms of the overall fiscal environment, it is going through a period of change and a period of volatility. Our counterparties that you approved way back in March are as listed. This report asks you, paragraph 42, to widen that slightly in terms of making a change to our policy to allow us to use approved UK counterparties plus banks and other counterparties in other countries with sovereign ratings of AA-. Provost, the report is one that shows that in terms of our report, our Treasury management function, we have aligned with and complied with the indicators that were set. It notes that we will have to take some borrowing soon, but the pace upon which we will do so will be impacted by the most recent shocks that have taken place and the impact that will have on future interest rates. As I say in all these reports, it's the Treasury function is one where we look at several times a day. We are supported by Link, our Treasury advisors, and that essentially give comfort to members that we monitor this several times a day, and in terms of that borrowing or those interest rates, we'll watch them and be advised of them in a frequent basis. The report concludes with the financial implications, risk management implications, noting there are none. The recommendations to Council today, Provost, are at paragraph 2 on page 91. They are to consider this mid-year report, to approve that slight amendment to the investment strategy, and otherwise not the contents of the report. Provost, I'll stop there and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Joe. A fully in-depth report as ever, but I'm managing to explain it, I think, as well as you can for the lay people amongst us. I have a quick question for you, Joe, and I'll take it to page 97 and the table at paragraph 31 and obviously paragraph 32. And I know, and I'm pleased to see that you have no concerns, there's no difficulties in terms of future years and complying with the prudential indicator in terms of our maximum borrowing. My question would be that in terms of long-term liabilities, the estimate versus projected of variance 2 million, 2.2 million, is that historically on track as a percentage that kind of similar? Just to find out what's happened in the past, and then I'll open it up to other members. Joe.
So in terms of that table at paragraph 31, table 6, the long-term liabilities are in this report. I have to break out and show separately the PPP contracts. So this is the first stage of the PPP skills. It's also McIlvanney as well, the more recent ones. and we show them in this report as a liability. And in other parts of the report, we see the corresponding income coming in from government. So that £2 million is just phasing Provost at this point in time, but no issues at all with those long-term liabilities.
Oh, good news. Okay, members, I've got Councillor Roberts, Councillor Cook, and I don't know who else we've got, and Councillor Grant. So I'll take it in that order if that's okay. Councillor Roberts first.
Thanks very much, Provost. Joe, it's a sobering report in some aspects. I think we would all agree, but by the same token, if you flip that on its head, it shows what a good job you guys are doing. And I just take you to paragraph 21, the slippage and the reprofile of expenditure and the projections, the interest rates going forward up to 2024. I think it's anybody's guess what the interest rates are going to be doing, bearing in mind the volatility. But, the impact on our borrowing, bearing in mind we've got a quite a large debt portfolio with the Public Works Loan Board. That's probably the biggest impact, interest rates rising. So I think probably my comment here, Joe, rather than a question, is a big well done, for keeping us on track. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Cook, Councillor Grant, then Councillor Lunton.
Thanks, Provost. No, thanks, Joe, for the report. And again, it's not really a question; it's more a comment. We do have a high borrowing requirement, but I think what we need to remember is that money is being spent in our communities to improve people's lives, houses, schools, other buildings, and improve our roads. So it's putting money into our own local economy by spending this money. And there are risks, I know, around interest rates going forward, but I'm sure you and your team are keeping a very close eye on these, and we'll adjust our borrowing absolutely if necessary, and are using every opportunity to use the money that we have in the bank at present, where we're getting virtually zero interest on it, to avoid borrowing at this particular time. I'm sure you're keeping your eye on when the right time is to borrow if interest rates would start down rising. So well done to you and the team, Joe.
Councillor Grant.
Thanks very much, and I'd also like to join my colleagues in thanking Joe for once again explaining some pretty complex issues in a way that we can grasp them. It's much appreciated. As you know, Joe, I've been tracking and taking an interest in the rate of inflation for the last few months, and I don't think my predictions have been too far from where we've landed. But I've got a question for you. I've noticed that there's been quite a lot of opportunism built into that 5% inflation that we're seeing at the moment. An example of that is that supermarkets who make up more than 50% of petroleum sales have recently shown that they're making an average 18 pence a litre profit on sales of petrol and diesel, where less than 2 years ago the average was 7 pence. So, as Keynes told us that inflation is too much money chasing too few goods, I think one of the issues here isn't necessarily too few goods. It might well actually be some opportunities getting taken up. And as a result of that, it's quite possible that the inflation level we're experiencing at the moment might actually curtail quicker than expected. And I just wondered if you have any sort of views about that and any advice and thoughts, because I do appreciate your knowledge on the subject.
Thank you, and through you, Provost. I think you're right. I think in terms of that new element of inflation that's causing it to go up, and we know that the indicators, the commentary on the most recent rise is around those home-based gas, electricity, and also petrol as well. I think guided by the recent Bank of England update, which was, and Office of Budget Responsibility was around, interest rates peaking during 2022, but then coming back down relatively quickly. Maybe not to 2%, but certainly not sitting at 5% for any length of time. And it's something where we're hoping that is the case, because the high interest rates for this council, it doesn't just impact on one thing. It impacts on pay awards, the prices of goods and services that we buy, and a whole range of other things, which then causes as Councillor Cook touched on, a limitation on that wider benefit that we can produce and generate in our local communities. But hopefully, Councillor Grant, it's a peak. It might go a bit higher, but then come back down fairly quickly.
I think Joe for the Governor of the Bank of England wouldn't be a bad idea. Anyway, Councillor Linton.
Thanks, Provost, and just really continuing on from Ian Grant's inflation observation. And I think Joe rightly pointed out that the 5.1% inflation rise announced yesterday is driven primarily by energy and fuel costs. And I must admit, as a layman, I'm struggling to understand how wind-derived electricity prices have shot up. I just can't come up with any other reason than profiteering by the energy producers. There doesn't seem to be any variation in the cost of setting up the plant and then allowing the wind, which is free, to drive these turbines. I just wonder if that's something we could maybe look at as a council to see if we could maybe get a more secure footing for energy in the future. Thanks.
Very good comments. Maybe not one for Joe. Well, Joe, if you want to come back in, certainly something we could look at as an authority, I think.
It's something we can look at as an authority. We know from some of the really innovative projects that are in our Ayrshire growth deal, in particular the core project, that there are perhaps opportunities in that. But we're always open to anything that can produce benefits and save money for us.
Thank you very much. Joe, any other comments or questions from members? No, if there are none, can we move to the recommendations? Members, at page 91, paragraph 2, there are 3 recommendations. Are they agreed? Agreed. Lots of thumbs up. All good. Okay, thank you very much. Members, we'll move on to item 7.1, which is a motion by Councillor Jim McMahon. Councillor McMahon, do you want to read out your motion? And we can open it to questions.
Thank you, Provost, and just indulge me with a kind of wee preamble prior to the motion. So this kind of comes with me wearing 2 hats as a representative for the Council on Community Justice Ayrshire, and also when I sit and chair the licensing panel and understand the importance of giving people with potentially convictions another opportunity. So we'll be aware that the Management of Offenders Act Scotland 2019 changed the conviction information requirements on all disclosures. Minor offences no longer need to be disclosed for a longer period of time. The change in disclosure supports employers to recruit the right person for the right job, regardless of unrelated convictions, releasing people for the poverty trap that they might find themselves in. We need leadership in this area of recruiting with conviction, and to help tackle inequality issues and to support businesses to fill vacant posts, reduce unemployment, and to contribute to our community wealth building programme. Employers sometimes find it difficult to fill the vacant posts and could potentially have overlooked suitable candidates who have convictions. So changing the recruitment could outlook and hugely be beneficial for both businesses and applicants. So it's asking them to need to change that practice. I have personally spoken to people who feel it a waste of time to apply for jobs because they have previous convictions on their record and they reckon that would control them out of jobs. But we need to give them confidence that their application will be objectively considered. East Ayrshire Council is a big employer with a wide range of jobs requiring a huge range of skills. We already play a big part supporting people into employability, so I believe we should, as a key partner with Community Justice Ayrshire, that become an ambassador to recruit with conviction and actively promote the value of recruiting with conviction. I don't know whether anybody saw it last week, but it went viral on Facebook, where it was actually a homeless guy that had come out an interview and they'd offered him a temporary post, and the CCTV caught him running along the road, jumping for joy, punching the air. I know the guy was homeless, but that's the same response you get when somebody with conviction could potentially fill that post as well. So we're bearing that in mind. The motion I'm bringing to the council this morning is that East Ayrshire Council agrees to become an ambassador for Recruit with Conviction and will support and promote the safe and sustainable employment for people with convictions in our workplace, and further agrees to influence other workplaces. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you very much, Councillor McMahon. I think we've got open to questions now. We've got Councillor Cook and Councillor Herd, and then Councillor Claire Leach. So I'll take it in that order for now, thanks.
Thanks, Provost, and thanks to Councillor Mann for bringing that motion forward, which I'm happy to second and support. As members will know, in my time as chair of both licensing panel and licensing board, I was always very keen to ensure that people coming forward with convictions and which have been brought forward by the police are given every opportunity to rectify their misdeeds and give them an opportunity to succeed in life. So many young people end up with a criminal record when they're 19, 20-year-old, and simply by being maybe young and stupid at the time. But as they get to 23, 24, their lives change, they have a family, and their whole outlook changes. And I think we have to give these people every opportunity to get back into employment. And I remember in my time as on the community justice for South West Scotland, going to a meeting to be given a presentation by a murderer who had totally turned his corner. He was now working with the Scottish Government to get the message across that not everybody stays bad for the rest of their life. Everybody can make a mistake, so we have to give them the opportunity. So I'm happy to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. And I think it's you touch on the point about licensing and fit and proper person, which there is no actual definition of. I think, and that those words alone could well put people off, couldn't they? And I'm glad to hear the approach that we have taken as an authority to date. Who is next? Councillor Herd, who obviously from his experience in the police, it'll be good to hear from. Councillor Herd.
Indeed, thank you, Provost, and thank you, Councillor McMahon, for bringing this motion forward. I have indeed seen the revolving door of offending, prison and re-offending many times, and the desperate spiral that has for many people. I've seen the effects on the offender, the effects on their families, and the effects on our wider communities. I do fully support this motion. And I would also commend the related Ban the Box campaign, which you'll find online. It's an interesting read. Also, if there's anything I can do to support this in any way going forward, please let me know. Thank you, Provost.
Well said, Councillor Herd. Councillor Claire Leach.
Thank you, Provost. I was actually going to come in second, but I'm really glad to see the Councillor Cook's done that. Jim and I had a lot of conversations on this particular topic, also bearing in mind adverse childhood experiences when they come into play. We live in a culture of cancel culture, and as Tom had mentioned earlier, who you are and the behaviours you display when you are younger doesn't necessarily equate to who you are today. And also realising there's a lot of people out there who's trying to break generational cycles of behaviour, and people do deserve a second chance and sometimes a second and third, because it isn't an easy thing to break out to. And if people can change their behaviour for the sake of their kids and their generations after that, I think folk are absolutely warranted that chance. So Jim, love to see it, and thanks Tom for coming in already.
Thank you for that. No, I think it's wise words. I think none of us were the boy or girl we were, the man or woman that we've become. Nobody is perfect. We've all made mistakes, and some more than others. But who are we to be judge and jury? Councillor John McGee.
Aye, thanks, Provost. I think East Ayrshire's got a really good record in reducing reoffending, and I fully support this motion. As everybody knows, again, one of the main things of reducing reoffending is if people have got a home, a roof over their head and a job, and I would fully support the motion.
Thank you. Members, any other comments or questions?
Provost, if I could just come back in.
You can indeed, Jim. On you go.
Thank you very much, Provost, and thank you everyone for your support on this. I probably was one of the daft young boys when I was 17 and 18. However, moving on for there, I recognise opportunities that was given to me when I moved on, and the person you become. I'm glad that that revolving door was mentioned, because giving somebody a job gives them that responsibility, that ambition, and a bit of pride and a bit of self-satisfaction walking out the door in the morning, going to earn for their families. Councillor Herd will maybe correspond with you again on the Ban the Box campaign and have maybe further discussions on that one as well. So once again, thank you, members, for your support in this.
Thank you, Councillor Mahon. When Councillor Mahon brought this motion to me. We had a long chat, and it's something that absolutely is close to my heart and means a lot to me as well, from family experience. So I am delighted to see that this motion seems to have cross-party support today. Members, are we agreed unanimously, or anybody else otherwise minded? I'm going to take that as unanimously agreed. Members, well done. Thank you very much. And thank you, Jim, for bringing forward the motion. Members, we'll move on to item 7.2, which is a motion by Councillor John McGee. John, if you want to come in, and we can move on from there.
Aye, thanks, Provost. The Council is aware that homeowners and landlords have been given a legal deadline of February 2022 to ensure that their property is compliant with standards of specified equipment for new fire and carbon monoxide alarms. From February 2022, all homes in Scotland must be fitted with interlinking smoke and heat alarms and carbon monoxide alarms if there is a carbon-fuelled appliance or flue. Note, smoke alarm and heat alarms must support interlinking either via hard wire or cable or wireless radio frequency. From February 2022, all homeowners will be required to have the interlinked alarms under legislation brought forward after the Grenfell Tower tragedy in 2017. These alarms significantly reduce casualties by alerting everybody in a property to a fire. All homes will also require a carbon monoxide alarm. Private rented and new build homes must already meet these standards, but from February they will apply to every home in Scotland, regardless of age or tenure. An average 3-bedroom house would require 5 interlinked alarms, made up of 3 smoke alarms, 1 heat alarm and 1 carbon monoxide detector, at an estimated cost of £220. This is based on using the type of alarms that can be installed by the homeowner without the need for an electrician. The Scottish Government is providing £500,000 to help eligible older and disabled homeowners with installation in partnership with Care and Repair Scotland. All these alarms can be either lifelong sealed and battery operated or mains operated if a homeowner opts to install tamper-proof, long-life lithium battery alarms. The average total cost is estimated to be at least £220. The Scottish Government guidance states that homeowners who have questions about how this change in the law might affect their home insurance should check with their provider. The above information is taken from the Scottish Government website. Households in East Ayrshire have had little guidance on what they are required to do and what, if any, support is available to them. Elected members are aware, by way of numerous inquiries from and discussion with constituents, that a high level of uncertainty exists in the communities where there is anxiety as regards availability of skilled trades and equipment. If the equipment is not installed by the prescribed deadline, whereby home insurance cover could be ineffective. We would ask that Council agrees that we provide links to advice and guidance supplied by the Scottish Government via the East Ayrshire Council website. I believe we have done some of this, and working with partners ensures that those groups most likely not to have internet access are contacted in writing. Council further agrees to write to the First Minister requesting that the legal deadline be extended by a full year, as it would be unacceptable to leave many in our community without effective insurance cover. In the meantime, requests that appropriate financial assistance be made available by the Scottish Government for people in low incomes to enable them to meet the cost of the required installation. I'm happy to take any questions and to come back in further if need be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. I've got Councillor Neil McGee, I assume, to second it. And who else have we got, Julie? Councillor Cook and Councillor Jim Roberts. So we'll go on that basis. Thank you.
Thanks, Provost. You're right, it is to second the motion, absolutely. I think I'm only beginning to get rumblings of people saying, what is this and what do you do? I think there is a shortage, although we've tried. I think we need to make further impression on informing people the process, and of course with COVID and Christmas, it just adds to the pressure of people at this time, and I think an extension is fully warranted. So So fully support the motion, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Cook.
Provost, yes, thanks, and thanks to John. You know, I fully support the motion. The members who were at the Police and Fire Scrutiny Committee yesterday were given a presentation by the Scottish Fire and Rescue on the new legislation, a slide presentation, and I have asked that that be sent to all members, and it should be circulated to all members so that we can share that with communities. We are also preparing, Scottish Fire and Rescue are also preparing another bulletin of an update, which will be sent out as well to members for passing on. So we are, you know, from that aspect, Scottish Fire and Rescue are trying to do their part in all of this. But I think just to add to the points that Councillor McGee was making there, I think we've, you know, with the sudden surge that we've got in the Omicron virus, and, you know, advice from Scottish Government to try and avoid and limit your contacts with other people. Many older, vulnerable people are now reluctant to let anybody into their house that they don't know, strangers and tradesmen. So that's going to cause further delays in people actually getting the devices installed. So I think, you know, that does support that we really need to get this extension. And in terms of finance, it was touched on by Councillor McGee that Scottish Government have, you know, put £500,000 up, you know, for help. But the information at present is that half of this money has been spent, and only about 8,000 homes have, 800 homes have benefited from it, which brings you something about, you know, 2,000 will benefit from this money. So there's about 60,000 homes eligible because of the benefits that they receive. They're eligible for this support. So it's quite clear that the funding currently provided doesn't go far enough. So there has to be additional funding provided. So happy, you know, to support the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cook. Councillor Roberts.
Thanks very much, Provost. John, you'll not hear any dissent from me in regard to your motion. I think it's a particularly good motion. It's particularly relevant, and it links in with health and safety, and welfare of people living in their homes. I think we need to be careful in regard to this. You know, it's a recipe for a cowboy's charter in terms of some of the installers that's going about out there. So I think in regard to the information that's going out, we maybe have an approved list of local contractors who are approved contractors. They are certified to do the type of work that's needed. Yes, there is, you know, self-installation types that you can put in. But I think in terms of any compliance with the building regulations, I think that's going to be important, especially where some of the contractors can self-certify. But it's a good motion, John, and I'm happy to fully support it.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Dougie, then Councillor Ellen Friel.
No, I think the points have been well made there. I was going to take my hand down, I think Tom had said there, and Jim too. You know, with COVID pressures, shortages of labourers, you can't even get a bus to be in queue, you know, because there's less and less bus services, etc. I just think we need to, it's the right thing to do to fit these safety measures, but time pressure is far too much, and I think it's a motion we can certainly support.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. I mean, obviously we know that as a landlord, the council have all but a handful, isn't it, really, of properties. I'll get Katie just to confirm that just before I bring in other members. But Katie, it is just a handful, isn't it, in terms of that we require to do as a landlord?
Yeah, thanks through you, Chair. Yeah, we've got a stock, as you know, just over 12,000, and we have about 30 as of last week remaining, and we're working closely. Some of those where we can't get access or somebody's in hospital. So we've done 12,000 installations in our own stock. And also we're working closely as well. We have the private sector's landlords unit, as you know, that we oversee in terms of their licensing, and we have 5,000 of them, and we've been working closely with private sector landlords to offer them the support to do that. Also through our comms team, we've been working throughout the year, and there was a major campaign during August with more detail about what people had to do, but we know that more needs to be done here to raise awareness, because we are getting a lot of inquiries and people are a bit worried about it, particularly in the current context of either access to the actual equipment because of shortages or actually affordability. So we do know it's an issue. And I know as well that Craig Ross, through the Health and Social Care Partnership, working very closely with Scottish Fire and Rescue, where they're doing visits, kind of safety visits, as you know from yesterday, Councillor Cook as Chair of Police and Fire, to vulnerable homes and fitting the linked detectors where they can, and they would be high risk. And where a home is vulnerable but not deemed high risk, we're also trying to use discretion through care and repair, as was previously said, to help to support the installation there as well. So we're coming at it from a different range of areas, but there are 56,000 households, and I probably only have the influence over up to maybe about 19,000 of those in terms of how we can really affect change. So absolutely would welcome this. I think it's worrying a lot of people, but particularly in the current context of either access or affordability.
No, points well made, Katie. I think we saw the same just at the start of the pandemic with gas safety checks. So understandable, people don't want strangers in their house. Councillor Friel and then Councillors Claire Maitland.
Thanks, Provost. This is just to let colleagues know that the Helping Hands charity in Kilmarnock provide basic maintenance to its members of vulnerable people and elderly, and their maintenance staff have done the training with care and repair to fit these to its members. So that's another avenue to explore for anyone who makes an inquiry. It's a £20 a year membership of the charity, and you can ask them as many times as you like for basic maintenance help, but their maintenance staff have now done the training to fit them. They certainly wouldn't supply the equipment, but they would supply the fitting free. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Friel. That's important to note. Councillor Claire Maitland.
Thank you, Provost. It's just to echo the sentiments of everybody else, but to add a little note of warning. I was consulted a month or so ago, maybe 2 months ago now, by a constituent who'd picked up a leaflet in the library saying that these people could install the required equipment in time and that there would be a charge. And when the gentleman phoned me, it was because he couldn't get through to the phone number, which was a Glasgow number, on the leaflet. Now, it turns out they're a legitimate company. There are companies that are going to be offering this service, but I just think it's very interesting that they got into our libraries. Surely, as Ellen just explained, we've got our own people that can help do this as well. So just something to look out for there, people maybe jumping on a bandwagon. Thank you.
No, I think that's very well made point there, Councillor Maitland. I think we will ask officers just to make sure any information that's out there is correct, and yeah, we're putting them, direct them locally in the first instance, or that we are doing the appropriate checks for these companies. Councillor McGee, John McGee, do you want to come back in just to close matters?
Aye, thanks, Provost. On reading the motion again, I could see how it could be interpreted. It was having a wee go at East Ayrshire Council itself or the Scottish Government. But listen to Katie, and I appreciate that we have done communications. But as Katie says, we need to do more. And I don't think it, whether it's the right move or no, we need to make sure that our houses are safe for fire. And we knew if February 22 was the date that it had to be done, we'd be managing to make the houses safe before the folk for Grenfell has even been rehoused. So I think that the motion is just purely to ask for an extension for all the points that's been made by other councillors here today. And I think it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. So just to be clear for members, I'm not seeing anybody who has otherwise minded that we are going to write to Scottish Government, obviously seeking an extension, but the proposals also include that we would, as an authority, seek to try and write to those who are most likely to be without internet access, so probably our elderly population primarily, to advise them of their obligations. Am I correct in saying that? That's just so everybody's clear in terms of the motion. Okay. Members, are we agreed? Are we a unanimous agreement again? I'm seeing no dissenting voices or anybody tell me otherwise. So we can agree that, and that's good that we've done so. Important business, again, members, today. As we started off, Chief Exec has given us quite a sobering update in terms of COVID-19. Just to reiterate, if you can, please let Eddie and Katie's teams know if you are available. I'm sure they will try and coordinate if there is anything that we can do. But please stay safe, have a nice Christmas, have a very peaceful new year. I look forward to seeing you all in the new year. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Provost.
Thanks, Provost. Merry Christmas to everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Murray. Happy Christmas,
Merry
everybody.
Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Guys.
Bye. Bye.